The Westminster Shorter Catechism begins by saying this: what is man's chief end? And the answer to the question is, the man's chief end is to know the Lord and glorify Him forever. That's man's chief end. The whole objective that we have in our lives is to make sure that God receives as much honor and glory as He is due. Not as much as we'd like to give, not as much as we think measures up to it, but as much as He is due. And the challenge for many of us is accepting that sometimes in our lives, maybe our lives don't do that. And so we have to put ourselves before God and say, God, please search me. I think of the picture of Jesus in John chapter 2 and then the other Gospels later on in each of the Gospels as He enters into Jerusalem on His way to the cross. And the first place that He stops in those later Gospel accounts, so Matthew, Mark, and Luke, He comes along to the temple, and the first thing He does is He goes into the temple, and He sees them all exchanging money, which is actually not a big deal. The problem was that they were basically doing it in a way that was profiting them and dishonoring God. And so Jesus just sort of loses his mind and starts throwing tables around and starts yelling at people and starts making whips out of things to get the animals and everything out of the area. Because ultimately what was happening was dishonoring the Father. Because it was dishonoring the Father, then ultimately Jesus felt this sense of, why should we let this happen? You know, sometimes in our lives, when we look at what is happening around us, we're challenged to ask God, are you being honored? Are you being celebrated in the way that your word tells us to celebrate it, the way in which your Son taught us to celebrate you, the way in which your Spirit stirs us to celebrate you? Are you being honored that way? And when that's not happening, there's a certain urgency within us to correct it. That's what the psalmist is doing today when he says at verse 19 of Psalm 139, if only you, God, would slay the wicked. Away from me, you who are bloodthirsty. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord, and abhor those who are in rebellion against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. What a profound statement. And if it were brought by itself, it would certainly seem to suggest that it's okay for us to seek out to destroy other people. In fact, if you go to the Gospels, you find Jesus, his reference to what you do with your enemies is to pray for them, not to slay them. So what is David, what is he saying? What is the psalmist seeking to accomplish in this particular way? I think it's just to protect the nature and to honor the character of God. That perhaps, again, there's a different vantage point to look through, and we should keep that in mind. When you read the Psalms, you want to remember these are all written well before the arrival of Jesus. And so some of what we're reading is really about being under the covenant of Moses and what is called upon there and how to protect and how to honor. But even there, the demand was still, whatever must be done to ensure that God's character is not impugned, make it happen. When the psalmist has recorded the thoughts of God being ever infinite, or of the presence of God being everywhere all the same at the same time, when he said that God was powerful in creating all things, in fact, all powerful to create them, then to call out this is just to simply say, God, look and survey the land. For those who oppose you, stop them. Don't let them oppose you. Don't let them speak ill towards you. And I've set apart in my heart not to join them when they do. When they use your name to satisfy their own desires, their own wants, I've chosen not to align myself with them. I've chosen to separate myself completely. Today, when you're thinking about praying over what it is that God's calling you towards, you may have to ask Him to search you. Say, God, am I honoring you in that way? Have I compartmentalized certain things because it's easier? Have I jumped on a certain bandwagon, whatever it may be, that doesn't bring you honor but brings me satisfaction? Is my heart truly in tune with the idea that you should receive all the glory and I should receive none of it? In other words, are we treating God as one whose name must be preserved at all costs? Or are we treating God as one who's just simply been renamed a better version of me? The psalmist calls us today to search our hearts in that way and to say to God, God, search me and let me know. But more beyond that, Lord, once I've identified it, then help me to move forward, to separate myself from anything that would impugn your character or come against your nature. And trust that he will do just that. God bless you. Go in peace.